stop the pigeonholing of African music. In London, we always hear, yes, there's a great African night at the shows. African music, come down and listen to African music. Africa is probably the most diverse continent in the world. Thousands of different cultures, tens of thousands of subcultures. If I'm hearing an African night, am I listening to Ladysmith Black Mambazo from South Africa? Am I listening to Egyptian music? Am I listening to Senegalese music?
54 countries, one night.
One night, right? You know, insane. One thing I really love about the NYU Abu Dhabi community here is that it's not just the performance for performance sake. There's a built community where education goes alongside the art. Djembe comes first. It's my instrument, and it is the medium through which I'm able to do everything else, through the lens of my culture, and everything else comes after. It wasn't just something that I thought, wow, it was a great instrument to play, but what it represented. People relate complexity in music with scale and notes. So they hear a melody, and for them that is music. Whereas there's language in percussion, there's language, deep, complex language in percussive instruments. There's deep, complex intricacies that I'll be able to tell if the person playing is from Mali or from Guinea or from Ivory Coast by the notes and the way they phrase themselves.
Welcome to another episode of the Art Center at NYU Abu Dhabi podcast. My name is Mikey Mhenna. Today on this series, we have Yahael Camara Onono, who's a master djembe player, composer, arranger, and band leader, who is based in Abu Dhabi right now and is joining the show. Welcome to the series.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Is that the right order for how you feel about your work? Djembe player, composer, arranger, band leader? Does that sound right?
I think so, actually. Yeah, I would say so. I think djembe comes first. It's my instrument. And it is the medium through which I'm able to do everything else, through the lens of my culture, and everything else comes after. So, yeah.
So for people who are unfamiliar with what a djembe is, not only physically, what is it, but sort of symbolically, how would you describe what it is?
Okay, so I guess the easiest thing is physically. Djembe is a drum. It's a goblet-shaped drum. It's made of wood, animal skin, rope for the tuning, and metal for the rings retention. And it's originated in West Africa, in the Manding region of West Africa, which comprises of Mali, Guinea, Ivory Coast, and Burkina Faso, around probably the 11th century. And it's something that's continued into our contemporary culture to today. And if we're talking about its symbolic meaning, the djembe is an instrument that is casteless. In West Africa, we work with caste. We work in a caste system. There's some instruments that are tied to caste, that are tied to some hereditary music families. The djembe is not one of. The djembe is used and is present in a lot of happenings in Manding society, and also other cultures that have adopted it. And from recreational things to rituals, to initiation ceremonies, to religious and spiritual events. But the djembe represents something also more. The djembe is probably the most popular percussion instrument in the world. You can find a djembe or a form of a djembe found worldwide in percussion classes in schools. You go to nurseries, they've got little djembes in the corner. You know, it's very, it's very.
It's the ukulele of hand drums.
Right, you know, and it's has also a history that is not only cultural, but is political, that is Pan-African, that is a symbol and become a symbol of identity of not only West African culture, but also African pride, Black pride, etc., etc.
Yeah. What was your journey with the instrument? How did you find yourself in that world and think to yourself, okay, this is actually how I want to build my career, my expression?
Sure. I think for me, you start from maybe the age of 3. My grandfather played the talking drum, and he gave me a talking drum. You could see that when I was a kid, I was banging on pots and pans and doing different things, you know. I had an uncle that was a djembe player, some cousins that played djembe as well. And that talking drum was like a doll to me. It's take it everywhere, take it to bed, try and take it to bath time. It doesn't work in water, but we try. And around the age of 8, my mom bought me my first djembe. And from then, I've pretty much continued with it. The djembe became, especially growing up in the late 90s and 2000s in London, and you are up until the 2010s, you're surrounded by, in terms of Black identity and being Black British, you're surrounded predominantly by African Caribbean culture. And the djembe was that umbilical cord to home, where I was able to take the influences that I had outside, which whether it be dance or reggae, grime, hip hop, and all those things that was exceedingly popular, but then couple it with high life at home, Manding music from ceremonies that were being played, Umusangare to Salif Keita to Yusundur, and hearing the djembe in the back of all those different artists and hearing that also lead. As I got older and stepped into my career as a musician, the djembe was an instrument that I, again, because of its symbolism, wasn't just something that I thought, wow, it was a great instrument to play, but with what it represented as an instrument that comes and brings things together as a glue. And I've always thought of myself as like that. I've been able to bring people together and do different things, seemingly things that people thought were impossible, through the grace of God and also perseverance and hard work. The djembe also is a representation of that. And so, yeah, I also wanted to use it to change perception. People use percussion and think it's extra, but the djembe leads, the djembe is in front. And so it was just another way of expressing myself.
How much do you feel like the music that you're making is connected to London more than it is to anywhere else? North London specifically.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think why it's connected to London more than anywhere else is because the authentic energy of London is one of multi-layering. Like the real authentic experience of a Londoner is everyone coming from everywhere, eating everything, mixing with everyone. And of course, systemically, there are certain things that there are ceilings and obstacles, etc., etc. But on a social level, I grew up in areas with Brazilians, Somalians, Arabs, West Africans, Caribbean people. Uzbek. We all grew up in the same area, came up under the same influence, and in certain places talked the same way, walked the same walk, and had very similar life experiences. And so the music that I make, I think, is an authentic kind of soundtrack to that experience.
Yeah.
Just trying to be as real as possible, and that's what comes out. That's the soundscape I come with.
If there's a musician listening to this podcast, and they're like, okay, listen, I know basic rhythms from a couple different places, right?
Right.
Like I can think of sort of like the classic classic Western rhythms, a sort of 4 on the floor, or sort of a classic drum beat that you would hear in a rock song or in an early like 90s hip hop beat. I
Sure.
can think of like Latin music. I can think of the clave, or like I can in my head imagine what reggaeton sounds like.
Sure.
In the Arab world, I can predict what like a dumtak type thing sounds like. What is the simple calling card for Manding music rhythmically?
Rhythmically, I think that's a hard question to ask, and to answer. I think it's a good question to ask, but I think it's a hard question to answer. I think because Manding is an umbrella term, and within Manding there are different ethnicities, different identities, different languages, different cultures. And one thing I always say is that Manding music is probably, to me, one of the most complex music forms in the world. And so it'd be hard for me to pick one. But I guess one accompaniment that I can give you that is clear and everyone knows that is djembe. Kara kiteba, kara kiteba, kara kiteba, kara kiteba, kara kiteba. That's probably one that everyone can identify with.
Okay, I'm going to listen to some of this. So I'm going to pull up your Instagram and I'll pick a random clip. Can you somewhat describe what we're listening to and like if this feels like it's some sort of concoction that's like I hate the word fusion, but that is a mix of a lot of different styles and instruments and references, or does this feel like this is the type of stuff that is a reference to your childhood?
I would say in this particular clip, it's the last part of a composition that I wrote called Soninga Patromba. And Soninga is a tribute to my paternal ethnic group, which is the Soninke people, and also to the person that taught me how to play, his name is Sidiki Dambele. And that last part, or this song, was probably one of the more traditional songs that I wrote. Just because it follows the traditional pentatonic scale of a certain culture, of the Soninke culture. And also the rhythm that is being played is called maraca, which is a traditional rhythm played in Mali and Burkina Faso. And so this part of what you're hearing is probably some of the more traditional stuff that I've come up with, rooted in the tradition. But then there is still a fusion in the sense of instrumentation. It's not just the djembe and the kora or the jilinguni and the balafon. There is Latin percussion with the congas. There is the horns. There's guitar, bass, Western drum kit. There's Nigerian talking drum being played there. And that is, I would say, probably an accurate representation of my background. My mom is Nigerian, my dad is Senegalese. But I grew up listening to amazing guitar players from across the diaspora. I grew up listening to Bembeya Jazz and Yusundur and Lokes Baobab and their big horn arrangements. The big West African bands coming out from the Egypt 80, but also listening to Sonra Orchestra, and those things kind of influencing the way I put music together. And that big band feel is something that I wanted to replicate, but through the lens of West Africa and its diaspora.
Yeah. Do you ever get inspired by some of those big bands from other genres as well, from the 70s and 80s? I feel like a lot of like Afro-Cuban music had like these incredible big bands that were coming out and saying, all right, we're taking this folkloric music. We are not doing a rip-off of it. We're not doing a lazy version of it, but we're like adding in all these horns and adding all this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the Fani All-Stars and El Gran Combo and all that stuff.
Exactly. They were huge inspirations for me, but not just for me. For a long time, the music going from West Africa through the channels of enslavement and colonization that took it over to the Caribbean was often then taken with salsa and son and rumba and brought back to the continent. And we look at Congolese rumba, we look at, like I spoke about, Rail Band, Bembeya Jazz, all these big bands and these big arrangements were inspired directly by the big bands coming out of Cuba. The arrangement and the beautiful merging of folklore and the Western big band dynamic that was happening in jazz, for example, and incorporating the intricacies of polyrhythms and the different breaks and stabs and using the horns to accentuate those things is genius, you know?
For
And
sure.
those are things that definitely inspired me for real.
Yeah, interesting. It's even like part of modern. As you were talking now, I'm like, oh, this is like part of modern pop music on the continent. Like Kizomba's like this history of back and forth and back and forth. It's crazy.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
But it's funny how there's one song that comes to mind called Old Man by Yusundur. And the beginning, ba 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 ba
yeah.
ba 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 ba. It's such an iconic arrangement, but I think it was done in the 90s or the 80s. But to me, it's so fresh. It's such a fresh sound for me. I was listening to it in the car the other day and it sounds amazing.
Let's listen to it right now. Hold on. A tight band.
Tell you,
Jeez.
man. And all of it is tied in, not just with the horns, but with the sabah, the traditional
Yeah.
Sudanese percussion. The
Yeah.
mbalach is clear and strong. The tradition is strong as the core, as the glue, but everything else works around it. And once you get it right, clean.
Yeah. How do you feel? How can you identify a real from the fake? Okay. Right. So like I'll speak about it from an Arabic music perspective, right? There's you can sometimes it's like, okay, this is the real deal. This is certified. This feels authentic. And sometimes it's just like throw a derbeke on top of something or throw a oud on top of something, right?
Of course.
I mean, is this I would imagine this is something that you notice in your life and your work and people just like throw djembe on top of this, right?
All the time. I think you hear it. I think with percussion, it's quite. Some people will not find it as obvious because people forget as a percussionist, even people relate complexity in music with scale and notes, right? So they hear a melody, and for them that is music. Whereas there's language in percussion. There's language, deep, complex language in percussive instruments. There's deep, complex intricacies that I'll be able to tell if the person playing is from Mali or from Guinea or from Ivory Coast by the notes and the way they phrase themselves. You know, it's very clear. The easiest example you can have of that is sometimes you have like a house track and someone throws like a djembe solo on top of it, but it's just like some guy just playing rubbish. And it's just like, what's this? You're out and you're like, what's going on? You know? I think that's the easiest thing that you can attribute something like that to. But then even further in, if you look at just the culture and stuff, it's very clear. I think the first thing is that if we remember that a lot of musicians are coming from a caste system, and in Manding culture, a lot of the people that are using music as their medium are coming from musical families. So you can tell those that have a deep, rich, ingrained sense of things through their lyrics, through the way in which they approach music. You can always tell, you know? And you can also tell when someone has a bit watered down approach, or I think quality is quality, you know? And it always shows up in every aspect, whether it's art, whether it's music, whether it's, things are subjective, of course, but there's also a depth that has to be acknowledged for the art.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about the Balimaya Project, if I'm saying it correctly?
Yes, perfect. So, Balimaya Project is my group that I formed in 2019 in London, off the backdrop of really wanting to do three things. First was to stop the pigeonholing of African music and give my own contribution to that. In London or in the UK or in general, we always hear, yes, there's a great African night at the shows, African music, come down and listen to African music. Africa is probably the most diverse continent in the world with thousands of languages, thousands of different cultures. thousands of tens of thousands of subcultures, and if I'm hearing an African night, am I listening to Ladysmith Black Mambazo from South Africa? Am I listening to Tinariwen from Algeria? Am I listening to Egyptian music? Am I listening to Senegalese music?
Yeah.
It's for me, it's mind-boggling that we can continue to put everything in just this big ball, and
Yeah. 54 countries, one night.
one night, right? You know, insane. And so one thing I wanted to do was be very clear and just say, okay, this is Balimaya Project, and we are doing Manding jazz, and so to prompt people to ask, what is Manding? And then you have to have that conversation, right? The second one was to give, I always struggle in French, the word is valoriser, but add value to the djembe as an instrument. Again, like I was saying earlier, I think percussion is always perceived as an extra. It's always perceived as what we add on extra, you know, wind chimes and toys and shakers, and how do we add effect where there's effect and there's also a cause. The catalyst for all things happening is the djembe or the congas or, you know, other folkloric cultures that center themselves around the drum and build outside from it, rather than those percussion instruments being an add-on. And, you know, and I wanted to show this is music that is arranged from the point of view of a djembe leading, as it should do. And this is what it sounds like. It is powerful, but it can also be soft. It can also be emotive. It can also be touching. It can also be real. It can also be gritty. It can also be really tight. And just give an insight to that. And the third one was really and truly just to have a space where, with people that I know and love, that I respect as musicians, some of the best musicians I know and really respect, I have the privilege of working with on Balimaya Project, and just being in a room where music that is from us, looks like us, and is presented by us.
Yeah.
When I say that, I mean young Black men from London. And I think that was very important. And those three things were really important to me.
How is it evolved? Let me play a little bit actually. So you gave a performance in 2025, January 2025 at NYU Abu Dhabi Art Center.
Uh-huh.
So let me play a little bit from that. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about this project. I think, if you can say the name properly, is it Hakili Kura?
Hakili Kura.
Kira Kura.
Hakili. Okay. So Hakili Kura was, I gave a J-Time course. The first J-Time course I gave was in Abu Dhabi, at NYU Abu Dhabi in 2025. And it was on Manding music and the Black experience. And I brought out the part of Balimaya Project to come out and perform and give a more intimate traditional experience. Balimaya Project is normally 16-piece with horns, guitars, djembe at the front, kora, balafon, you name it, and it comes together as an orchestra. But we came out as a 6-piece and wanted to give a more intimate traditional folkloric performance as Hakili Kura. Hakili means mentality. Kura is new mentality or new thinking. Coincidentally, Hakili, the root word is akil in Arabic, which is your intelligence or your thought.
Your mentality, yeah.
And so we use the term Hakili. And so it was just to take that traditional format, but do new things with it and kind of, you know, see what we could do in that kind of stripped down version of what we normally do, you know? So a Balimaya Project is the want to be innovative whilst being rooted in authenticity. Very respectful of the cultures we come from, but also aware that it's not a dead culture. Our culture is not Latin. It's not dead. It's very much alive. We use it every day. Djembe players are pushing the boundaries of how the instrument is played, from the continent to the diaspora. There are amazing djembe players, for example, in the States. There are amazing djembe players in Mali, in Ivory Coast, in Burkina Faso, in Guinea and beyond. And I think Balimaya Project also allowed us to connect as family and also to explore the different themes that come up that are unique to us in the diaspora, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the main aim of Balimaya Project. And we've been able to evolve and take a 16-piece band through COVID, um, in an economy where there isn't much money for independent musicians, let alone 16 of us, and we've been able to tour the world. We've been all across Europe. We've been to the States. We've come into the Middle East. We've been to Africa as well. We've gone to South America. We recorded an album called Kalima last year, which we did in collaboration with 3 bands in Colombia, and took Balimaya Project's ethos of building that bridge between diaspora and
Yeah.
wrote an album that is now award-winning and has been doing really well. Alhamdulillah. So
That's incredible.
we continue to do the same stuff and keep it pushing.
Yeah. This you're talking about diaspora. I'm curious about how the audiences and sort of students have landed, how the music has landed with audiences and students in the UAE. Yeah, how has the music landed with audiences and students in the UAE because of how diasporic of a community it is
Right.
in Abu Dhabi? And I mean, it's NYU is like filled with people from everywhere. Students, faculty, staff, families. It's mixed. So how has the music landed? Do you ever get people saying like, "This is not the music I'm expecting"?
I think I haven't had this is not what I'm expecting yet, but I've had the very graciously and humbly, I've had the your music got me through my masters. I've had the came to a concert and I've not thought about anything else. Where are you playing next? I didn't know that this existed. I didn't know that it was this deep. One thing I really love about the NYU community here is that it's not just the performance for performance sake. There's a built community where, and there's a framework where education goes alongside the art. And it's an institution that is really, and quite uniquely, I think, with NYU Abu Dhabi specifically, is pushing for the art to exist as art, but the information about the art to continuously be attached to it. So no one is going into a room or coming out of it ignorant. Everyone knows what they felt, but they also have an understanding of what they left the room with and have observed. And I think that is something that is very difficult, a very difficult balance, a delicate one. And from the comments and the people come up to me or the messages I receive, from our first performance in 2023 here to date, you have people that are interested in knowing more, enamored, people that are touched, and they continue to do so. Students alike. I have students that, and we talk about diaspora here. There are people that come from Manding diaspora here. There's students that come from New York via Guinea or via the Gambia or via Senegal. And I bump into these students, or some of them come into the classroom, and we end up talking. And, through that music and through our culture, we find a link and you learn to know more about people. But even better, you learn that there are bridges that link us, even if we're not coming from the same place at all. We're in the Khalij, and you can see already there's links between that are centuries old between our place in West Africa and this part of the world here. And
100%.
and it's less talked about. We always talk about the East African link to the Gulf, but we don't talk about the West African link at all, which is actually huge. And
Yeah,
it's something that we need to talk about more.
I think so too. I mean, Before we get into that link and some of the new music that you're making, I want to play a tune from When the Dust Settles. Let me cue it up and tell me if you prefer a different one.
Okay.
I was gonna play Suli's Ablution.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
Yeah, Sule's Ablution, that's fine.
I'm on my own, I'll make it through somehow. It's been so long, I need a helping hand. I'm on my own, I'll make it through somehow. It's been so hard, I need a helping hand.
For the sake of time, how does this song feel when it's performed live versus the studio version?
When it performed live, it takes such a different turn because I'm not a singer. So I've kind of got to muster up the courage to start singing on stage. And it took me a while to actually sing this song live. I only started doing it, I think, last year. I'm doing it with intention. So I think in the studio and the studio version, it was quite raw. The majority of the song was written in the studio on the spot. Apart from the lyrics, I had the idea, but we built on it together in the studio, and there were more ideas and stuff that came in the spot. So its actual structure and form, including the string parts and everything, came to us and to myself in the studio. And because it's such a theme that was very delicate for me, Suleiman was my first son who passed away, and so it was something that vulnerability, you know, and there is a truth to vulnerability in men and the kind of avoidance of vulnerability, but also we are always told as Black men that there is due to culture and due to having to, and not I wouldn't say due to culture, let me not say that, because historically we're very emphatic people. But I would see also recent modern history has forced us as a community to retreat into ourselves for self-preservation. And one of the consequences of that is that there is an education around showing vulnerability, whether it's manly, hypermasculinity, there's also a part truth to that. And being vulnerable to be able to grieve or process grief through music was something necessary that I wasn't prepared for, but thought was necessary. And so in the studio, there was a lot of that energy. So I was really quite tight. But then I think it's not just unique to Sule's Ablution. I think to a lot of pieces that you do or put together in the studio, you try and get everything as clean as possible. And
Yeah.
there's a pressure there for you to get everything you want on it, right? But once you get live, everyone can, if you really want to hear the studio version, you can buy the studio version, you can stream the studio version. You're live, it becomes a different
Yeah.
beast. You don't have I don't have a 16-piece orchestra on stage at every show. So how do I change this piece to fit the surroundings? And so it becomes more so a piece that still has its meaning, but also another musical kind of jigsaw puzzle to kind of figure out,
Yeah.
and takes on a more fun space, more musical centered space as opposed to emotion.
For such a personal piece, do you relive that emotional journey on stage every time?
Honestly, no. I think recording it and voicing what I wanted to do with it, I think was the cathartic kind of process I needed. And now performing it, it's not the same emotions. Obviously I know what I'm singing about, but if I'm honest, it's not it's more so I feel like I'm looking at the emotions from the outside now. It happened
Yeah.
it happened a long time ago, when I was 16. So I kind
Yeah.
of, but also didn't deal with it. But then dealing with it in 2023 and now performing it in 2025, that's 2026, I'm able to say, okay, this is something that I've finally been able to get over. And so it feels a bit more triumphant as opposed to a weight or a burden, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's beautiful. How has it felt being in working on a new collaboration, Manding Makamat? I
Okay.
think I said that right.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about that collaboration, and if it maybe it doesn't even feel like a new thing. Maybe it's just like it's all one thing. There's all one tapestry, and this is just like connected.
Yeah, it is new. It is new, but it also feels very natural. I feel like I lived in the UAE before. I lived here for almost 7 years. And already then the blueprint for Balimaya Project started in the UAE. The blueprint for Manding Makamat started in the UAE as well, where
Oh, interesting.
working with different artists from different places. I was part of a company that was creating a kind of music of the world show where I was the director and I was blending Emirati music with West African music and Mardengam and Southern Indian music and putting it all together. I had opportunities to work with Emirati musicians such as Belkis Fati for a few shows, and learn from that process, you know. And so the building blocks for that already started over a decade ago, right?
Yeah.
So this feels like a full circle kind of moment, coming back and picking up where I left off, but with intention, as opposed to just absorbing because I was here. There's a consequence of, being a working musician in this country. And now I have the space to, thanks to NYU, to explore this properly. It allows me to do it with intention. And so, yeah.
So let me ask you a question I want to ask about requests like that. Okay. So like when somebody comes to you and is like, hey, listen, Yahael, I want you to create a thing that has this vibe and this cultural musical tradition and this musical tradition from this culture and this.
Mhm.
Do you ever say like, we got enough. We got we don't need any more.
I've been very
like,
lucky that I actually haven't
yeah.
been asked that. Every concept I've come up, I've been the one that's been able to put it forward and felt like this is the time to get it done. You get asked.
I guess you get what I'm saying. Like if you're having a jam session and somebody says like, hey, I'm going to bring an oboe. Do you ever say like, no, we're good. We don't need an oboe. I'm going to bring a harp. Are you like, no, no matter what you're bringing, no matter what musical tradition you're coming from,
Yeah.
jump in here.
I feel like one thing I've always thought about is also accessibility, right? So I believe that if you're good at what you do, it could be a recorder, it could be a reed flute. If you're playing that, you're the chops are crazy on it, work anywhere. But as a musician, it doesn't necessarily. I've always said this because at the end of the day, I'm playing an instrument that people don't normally see goes with funk or a jazz band or or blues. I can play a djembe with it, but I have taken the time at least, and I still am, to see how it can fit, how it can make it work. How do I adjust my dynamic? And if you can see that someone has that sensitivity to music, why not? But then there's times when you could be on a jam and you'd be like, we don't need this voice right now. We don't need to, please don't scream. We don't need you, you know? There's a time for screaming. This is not the time for screaming. It happens. But I've been lucky in my more, I guess, professional kind of, in my career, where, alhamdulillah, it's been more of a, I guess, I've been able to follow what I do and present ideas, and the institutions I work with, or the labels, or that have bought into it and believed in it, and it's become what it has been. So I've been lucky enough not to have to shut people down so much.
Yeah.
So.
It's interesting what you said. I didn't know that you had been here for so long, and I didn't know that in some ways this is the UAE was a place where some of the inception of these projects has been.
Mm-hmm.
True or false? Is the UAE a place that encourages musical experimentation and musical expression? It can be false. You can say false. I mean, like, I'm curious because it surprised me when you said that this started here.
True and false in different ways.
Cool. Tell me.
I think it's true because there are so many different artists here. I think it's true that there is to encourage musical expression, one of the huge things that is needed is resources. And the UAE invests heavily in resources and culture. And I think that is a beautiful ground for people to develop expression, to develop ideas, and also the culture here changes so quickly. So there's a lot of growth happening compared to other places. Coming from the UK, where a lot of resources have been cut for artists, a lot of funding has been cut, a lot of spaces where people come and safe spaces that people come and learn and engage with, you have to fight to get that funding. And you don't encounter those roadblocks here.
Yeah.
Say that, yes, there is a truth to it. I say that there's a truth in the fact I was able to express because I met musicians that were working as musicians, that there was a framework for musicians to earn a living, and then therefore it meant that the musicians that I encountered were serious about what they're doing because it's their bread and butter. Whereas a lot of the times in the UK, yes, there's a high level in the UK of musicianship in general. But not everyone can afford to live as a musician and work as a musician. It's a percentage of us. And so sometimes you'll meet people that they don't have the zeal and ambition you are because they're not paying their bills from what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
I will say false. I would say that the UAE has some catching up to do in terms of level sometimes. And that can be hard because you're trying to, wade your way through and find those that you match with in terms of maybe ability.
Yeah.
Because I think the musical process here caters to certain industries. And so you have a lot of cover bands, and you have a lot of people doing covers, and therefore a lot of imitation of others as opposed to self-expression. And so, yeah, I think there's truth and I think there's falsehood in it as well. But I think a lot of people will assume that it's false and it doesn't encourage it. Where I do actually think there is encouragement. I think there is a huge potential not only for growth, but there is growth, and growth is happening. And there are some amazing musicians that have come out of UAE. Abri is amazing. The tasty biscuits coming out of Dubai are amazing as well. Like,
Man, if you can see a Tasty Biscuit show, you should go see one. They are amazing.
Definitely, man. I watched it for the first time here at NYU. They had a kind of sit-in night where they invited loads of different artists as well. And it was amazing. There's such great the musicians and the singers. Ruben, Donna, and Anya, all of them, beautiful, amazing. And Abri, for me, I've known Abri since I moved to the UAE. Abri, for me, is one of the most unique artists in general, not just UAE. For me, I think he has such a unique eye on music, and his own stuff is amazing. So yeah, there's great stuff here.
Okay, let's listen to this project and then we'll wrap up. So tell me a little bit before we listen to what this is all about.
So we this is on the oud is Abakary Mohammed from Egypt, and I think he's one of the first oud players of the National Orchestra here. And we were able to play together at a gathering arranged by Bill Braggin. I was invited to by Bill Braggin, the director of the Art Center here at NYU. And myself and Abakary had met for the first time, and it was amazing to see a virtuoso of the oud instrument. You see the oud played beautifully in many different places, but Abakary is different, man, and it was an honor to play with him. And it falls into place because I'm here as an artist in residence at NYU Abu Dhabi, and my main focus of research and work is finding links between West Africa and the Gulf. And having someone like Abakary here being a repository of that, and other musicians as well, has been really beautiful to be able to have a space to explore that on stage, which will be on the 11th of June. And I wanted to, before going in and going, okay, we're going to compose this and do this or that, I wanted this show on the 11th to be a first meeting, and for the audience to experience that first meeting. This clip where we clicked is a first meeting. We've never met before. We've never rehearsed. I didn't know what he was doing.
Crazy.
He doesn't know how I play. I didn't know how he played. And I think it's important, before we go in and start building, what are the blocks? What are the foundation? How does it sound? What can we come up together? What can we come up with together on stage, and create space, you know? And so, yeah, on the 11th, Abakary will be there. Claude Cousins will be on drum kit. Oboko Sana on bass from Ghana. Amazing bass player based in Dubai. He'll be here as well. A cousin of mine, Yahael Camara, will be playing the guitar. And an amazing Syrian percussionist called Hadi. He'll be playing darbuka, daf, and some other Arabic percussion.
Okay, let's listen to a little bit of this. Amazing. Well, I hope I'm going to be there. And tickets are on sale on the website. Yahael, this was so much fun. Can I ask you one last question before I let you go?
Of course, man.
Who's sort of the top 5 dead or alive West African musicians? You're like, if you're like, you want to get some music, this is a must listen. You gotta pull this up.
Okay. Dead or alive? Top 5
with albums or projects I can find online to listen to.
Salif Keita. I think Salif Keita is iconic Malian vocalist. He has continued, and as he gets older, he's singing even better. Salif Keita, Umu Sangare from Mali also. As a Senegalese guy, I will always say Youssou N'Dour. Youssou N'Dour is amazing. They're still alive, by the way, so I haven't got anyone dead yet.
Amazing.
I think another vocalist that is, for me personally, one of my favorites, she's passed away. Her name is Baro Dagnon. Baro Dagnon is a Malian griot, praise singer, hereditary praise singer from Mali. And she was one in her generation. And the information that she sung and shared with the youth and the next generation was beautiful. Baro Dagnon. And a last person, I would say, if you look at, I don't have one artist, but the genre is called Fuji. From Nigeria, southwestern Nigeria, the Yoruba people. This is probably a huge influence now, not probably, the biggest influence in Afrobeats now is Fuji and Akbala music from the Yoruba people.
Interesting. That's cool. I didn't know that.
You should definitely check out people like K1 The Ultimate, Yinka Ayefele, Oshukpa, Saidi Oshukpa. There's loads. I think definitely the work that they've done, and those are the trailblazers for people like Ashake, like Burna Boy, like Omale, Oxlade, all of these guys. With David O, the sound that they're using, I think even ahead of Amapiano, Adekunle Gold is Fuji or Akbala music from southwestern Nigeria. Definitely check it out.
Amazing. Actually, this is going to be my last question. You said that you're researching the connections between West Africa and the Khalij. What are you finding?
So much. Some that I don't have to research. I have cousins that are Saudi. They came, their great-great-grandfathers left Nigeria, went to Mecca and stayed.
Yeah. All you gotta do is walk through the Hijaz, walk through Jeddah, and you're like
Hijaz, and you'll see everybody. But then you also look at deeper connections, where if we look at the advent of Islam and Islam coming into the region a lot earlier than the Asia Minor, to just here on the corner, there was a huge Islamic community already in West Africa that had gone through a process of trade through the Sahara with North Africa, and also the adjoining peoples coming in through the Gulf, and the back and forth of trade. And you've seen musicians, you've seen in the music, you've seen in instruments, there are some wind instruments, I forget the name now, but that are used especially in Oman and here. And they have direct links to northern Nigeria.
Can I ask you about the trade routes and the sort of the movement routes from West Africa to the Hijaz in this case?
Sure.
Was it across the continent directly? So like going through, like Chad and Sudan and stuff like that, like directly across into Ethiopia and across? Or was it through North Africa and down?
Okay, so there could be...
Culturally and like physically.
Culturally, for example, Senegal, our brother country, is Morocco. Alongside Mauritania and Gambia. Those, we have a lot in common with them as well. But then it depends on your ethnicity and your ethnic group. It also depends on the history you're going by. If you look at parts of North Africa, you can see where not only there was a large contingent of enslaved people that went, but also there was a ruling by the Askia, the reign of one Askia Muhammad during the Songhai reign. The Songhai people ruled the southern part of Morocco for a long time. And also then coming down and also coming to places like Tombouctou, where there were universities where Arab traders from all over the Middle East used to come and study in these large universities, but also going back across the routes. So I would say one of the routes can go through Chad. One of
Yeah.
them can definitely go through Chad, above Sudan through Egypt,
Yeah.
into the Gulf, also going into Sudan. That's why you find West African populations in Sudan and Eritrea today. In Arabic they call Filata, is what we call the Fulani. The Fula people are from West Africa originally, but you find them in numbers in Sudan and Eritrea as well, and Ethiopia, you know? But then you have people like, you've heard of Mansa Musa, who was the richest man to have ever lived. His trade route would have probably gone up through Libya, and also going into Algeria a bit, maybe through Egypt, where he stayed for a long time.
Crashing economies, giving people gold. Yeah.
Making pilgrimage. And we remember back in the day when people went with their caravans, it was months of travel. And so travel is not the Umrah that we do today, which people do 10 days. People are going to stay maybe a year, 2 years, maybe settle. People that they have settle, have children, and they come back maybe in a different route as well, you know?
And a different group of people.
And different group of people, you know? People were surprised when they're Nigerians that speak Arabic, because in the north we have an Arab community that are native to Nigeria, that are based along the Chadian border, you know? These don't happen by accident. So, yeah.
So cool. People can find you online, on Instagram, on YouTube. The project, the Balimaya Project, is available on Bandcamp. Man, it's super fun talking to you. I really appreciate it.
Too, brother. Thank you so much for having me. I'm much appreciated.